family. Snumsa here at Ngosi Talk Shows, Find Your Own Voice, Lead from Within. So with me today, I'm with Amanda Marie and Grant Moreau. How are you guys?
Good. Ready to be here. It's bright and early here.
All good
Oh,
here. Lunchtime in London. All good. Well, late lunch is one.
awesome, awesome. So the topic today is transfer to prosper, refine your skills for inevitable success. Change is inevitable, but in the right mindset and strategy, it can become your greatest opportunity. Transfer to prosper is about embracing transition, refining your skills, and repositioning yourself for long-term success. Whether you're shifting careers, upgrading your goals, or adapting to life next phases, this is your moment to clean up, polish, and reassign your strength for maximum impact. So let's make the shift, not just bearable, but powerful. Grant, you chose this topic. Would you like to explain to our audience what was the motivation behind the topic, please?
As always, I was listening to music and I just thought, listening to people playing music, listening to people playing cover songs, listening to people playing older music and thinking of the annals of time and how the world around the music has changed, but the music remains constant, which made me realize that change, of course, is inevitable. No big surprises there. We know that when we stop to think of it for longer than 20 seconds. But what do people do? Change comes upon people and things need to change in order to make things constant again. Right. So one depends on the other. And I was thinking about this. I didn't thinking that most people fear change. As we know, is that what hardest thing to implement is change management, because people inherently see safety in the same thing. But if we can reframe that, life can be exciting. So thinking about, as Nomsa alluded to earlier, when change happens, we struggle to keep things as they were. But often it's like Peter putting his finger in the dam. Yeah, you can't hold the change back. Read an aviation book the other day about an aviation company not far from where I live years ago. And the whole huge company inevitably had to change because economics changed. World peace came, so that company no longer needed to build these military aircraft that it was doing. So change inevitably came, and there was 30,000 staff who were effectively redundant. What were they going to do? So they lobbied, they campaigned, they marched, they demonstrated, they did all these things. But the change still happened because there was a greater force at play. So sometimes we're struggling unnecessarily. Yeah, sure, you should stand up for what you think is right. But sometimes we're struggling against the inevitable. Would it sometimes not be easier to surrender to the change? And then that makes it much easier when you stop struggling. Surrender to the change, implement it, and see how you can position yourself for ultimate success. The quicker you do it, the better advantage you have. Now, I love watching YouTube and I love these things, and I do not pay to turn off the adverts, which is a bit annoying sometimes because there's a lot of education in those adverts. There's a lot of great tips. A lot of people spend a fortune on marketing to get, so they know what they're doing by the time they're paying for these ads. And when you look at it, one said about, it was talking about, in this example, we're talking about AI. So I'm not really talking about AI, this is just an example. And he was talking about the opportunity. Now, AI is not new. It's been around for 50 years, thereabouts. It's only made significantly changes and come into the public nuance, the public mind in the last few years. And of course, we all know about it now, but all interacting in it every day, whether we know it or not. So it's in the public's perception now. But he said, if you position yourself quickly in this AI boom. I forget the figure, an enormous industry is going to be overtaking oil and gas in the future. It's enormous. Position yourself early, make success. Now, if you're resisting that change, you're going to be resisting success. If you embrace the change and get to the front of the queue, you're ideally positioned. So, how do you do it? Is it important? Can we do it? I think we can. I think we've got far more attributes in which to embrace that change if only we choose to see them. And that's how it all came about.
I like that as you were talking about how the transfer from like using AI is something that we're going to see as like a necessary skill. I think that's really important, especially for educators, because I think this is a space that we're going to really have to navigate. And for me, it'll be about like critically thinking about what the AI is spitting out for you and be like, is that true? Can you look up multiple sources? One of the things I like in some of the AI right now is like when you search in Google, it gives you the links to where it's pulling that when it gets like an AI overview of like the topic or whatever it is that you search, it gives you the links to where that's coming from. And then you can click into there and actually see. And then there's ways you can refine it too, to like doing like academic searches for you and different things, which I think is really fascinating. I know it's changed the way that if I was in university right now, how I would approach research, right? Because you can, instead of spending hours and hours in the library and going and finding different books or different papers in the archives, like flipping through the papers like I used to have to, you don't have to do that anymore. It's a very different world when it comes to research and finding sources. But I think we definitely have to think very critically about those sources and where they come from. And then also like who backed the research, right? And then also while you're talking about this AI shift, it made me think of Blockbuster. Did you guys have Blockbuster video in when you
We used to. And I actually, the other day, I went to my friend who gave me the guitar, came
yeah.
back, he went to a meeting and he didn't know he came in a little while ago when he came over the first time, he didn't know it. He said, "Oh, I'm going to that." I said, "Ah," he said, "Yeah, I don't know. Do you know where it is?" I said, "Yeah, it's opposite Blockbuster Video." And he laughed. He said, "Wow, you're going back a while." I said, "Yeah, I guess it probably hasn't been there for 15 or 20 years, but that's where it used to be." Yeah, Blockbuster. We was talking about this on a business course the other day about what industry was Blockbuster Video in. You know,
Yeah.
what industry was,
They
and
went
I said it was in the convenience industry. That's what
Mm,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
the video.
interesting the story of that. There's like, I think there's a documentary on how Blockbuster essentially like became bankrupt and how net or maybe it's the rise of Netflix. It was about I watched a documentary on Netflix, I think it was, and it talked about how they like had approached Blockbuster and Blockbuster like basically threw them to the side and was like, no, we got this. And essentially because of how technology changed, they didn't keep up with the times and then
Right.
they like became bankrupt because of it. And I think that's something that we have to be aware of for sure is how things are shifting and then how can you be like you said in front of it instead of stuck behind. And when we think about industry, like it definitely has changed how people like look at like writing emails or doing research. And I think we're going to see a lot more shifts with the AI stuff as we go. um what do you think, Nomza?
Yeah, AI is, well, you got to go with it anyway, because I know there are some people who uh, are looking at the negativity of it, but I think we're just gonna have to learn how to use it and upgrade our computer skills to make sure that we match the AI so we are not left behind skill-wise. Um, and business-wise, AI is good for business. For me, if I want to research something, it actually takes like, it just, it's so quick to research things and I like to research things. So it takes really like a few seconds, you get to know what you're looking for, the negativity about what you're looking for, your competitors. So it's good for business. So yeah, so we have to surrender to the change, like Grant said, and Amanda, you mentioned as well with AI, and Grant mentioned the AI as well, that is here to stay. So, and Grant, I can't believe that AI has been here for 50 years. I didn't know anything about AI
No,
myself,
I didn't really know, but
honestly.
I know people who had worked in it. I said, no, it's been around about 50 years.
I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So I'm actually
But
surprised.
but I mean, I'm not really talking about AI today, but I mean, but the point was when you look at it, the human computer, the automatic computer, and all this sort of stuff. This is what Alan Turing was talking about
Yeah,
in World War II. He was saying the day will come. And that's the thing about scientists. They know what they don't know at the moment. He knew it will come. Well, if we can do this, then we would be able to do it. We can't do it at the moment, but they can see beyond the hill. They can see that we haven't got the technology and the understanding to do it yet, but we can see that as X develops and Y develops, then Z will become available. And it was this predicted by Alan Turing, the guy who created the computer as such. And that was devised for sort of military purposes, wasn't it? As most things are ultimately. He founded that I think in the 1940s, or maybe it's, and he had the humble beginnings of it. I think in the 50s, and someone may correct me on that. He had the humble beginnings of this stuff, so these things grow over time. But yeah, certainly been around. I mean, the 70s, yeah, they had stuff like this. It's just made quantum leaps in recent years, and that's how things grow. Things do that. Technology does. Apparently, I'm involved in some project with a company and talking about electric batteries. Okay, for example, and they've made a quantum leap apparently in recent times, which means that there's an aeroplane that I'm sort of involved with, and this aeroplane can go way, way further than it could recently because there's been a big upgrade in batteries. So it can literally fly further, which means capabilities are astounding. So there's all different options out there. We're moving forward, but I want to draw this back to the title, really. Okay, transfer to prosper. Relate your skills. So what skills do you have? So something happens, you lose your job, you have to move to a different town, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you become unwell and you can't do that job that you used to do. Okay. Now, this comes to me quite a lot when it comes to helping people promote themselves in 30 seconds or less. And I look at them, what they do, their organization, their skill set, their clients, where the success is, and I condense this all into a 30-second, possibly even a 15-second monologue. Okay. Which gets people to say, wow, and gets people to want to know more about what they do. So quite often when people struggle when they change is like, well, I've only been doing this 3 weeks. What can I do? And this is where we talk about repurposing, how to actually transfer skills, transferable skills, as it's known in the job market. Well, how you can transfer your skills from what you used to do to what you do now. Example, there was a guy who was an engineer for years. He was an engineer, and blah, 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 blah. And I started to ask him, well, what kind of guys did you work with? Well, guys who were sort of like, fairly senior engineers. They were sort of in the late 40s and 50s. And, yeah. He helped them to make wonderful solutions. He retired and then wanted to make himself a coach. Okay. So what are you doing? So I want to help people find new careers and stuff. So we went for the whole thing and got him to phrase himself as once he was a mechanical engineer. And now by using the skills he's had over the last 43 years as a mechanical engineer, he's now become a social engineer. Okay. He's repurposing those skills to help those people that he helped in industry now who have retired to find their second career or their hobby career. So he's helping them repurpose their mind. So he used his existing skills and mapped them over. So it sounded something like this. Over the past 43 years, I have been doing X. And by using those same skills, I'm now helping those same people to find the next stage of their life. You see? So he wasn't saying, I've been doing this for 3 weeks, 3 months or 6 months. I can't remember how long he'd been doing it for. But, you know, he was leveraging, and that being one of the key words, leveraging his previous experience, which was relevant to what he's now doing. So he's being honest, he's being congruent, he wasn't telling a lie. He was saying, for 43 years, I did this, and I'm using those very same skills to now do this. Okay, so he was repurposing his skills, he wasn't throwing it away. He was getting a maximum return on investment from those previous skills. And we all have skills when we look at it. So if anybody listening could think of a previous job you did, you developed some skills there, whether that was you were sitting at a checkout, you was developing some customer service skills, talking to people like that, whether you was doing market research, whether you was doing you was working in a web design agency or construction site, whatever, you developed certain skills. When you go on to your next role, your next job, which of those skills can you dress up a little bit, refine, or bring forward into your new career? So you're not starting afresh, you're in fact using the previous thing as a building block to go on to. Now, this makes common sense, because if you look at your CV, your resume, and you look at that, you build on top. Did you notice where I put that in for the North Americans there? Did you get that? so, so you build on this. So when you look at it, your previous job, you think, well, how did you get into this? When you look back, it's, oh, they did that before, and they did it. Okay. Quite often people will go in that kind of arc, won't they? They sort of go like that way. So it's a natural thing for us to do. But think of it when the arc doesn't go straight, when you go a little bit that way, you have a change of career, you go sideways, or you just, you know, a lot of people go to university and they'll go and learn one thing and then like, oh, I really don't like that. And then afterwards they want to do something different, you know, like they study science or whatever, they go and study something, I don't know, they study mathematics and then go and become a circus clown or something, you know. So, but what did they learn in mathematics? What did they learn at university? What did they learn about which can be repurposed for being a clown? Well, I would argue, if you learned mathematics, if you learned about this, that could be used as a formula for juggling, for example. You know, something, there must be something you can repurpose, and that would make a very interesting info commercial. If you was to do a quick, hey, my name's this, and I spent so many years doing that and doing these things. What has that got to do with being a circus clown? Everything. Let me explain why. You know, something like that, and they could repurpose. You know, oh, I never thought of it like that. To fly an aeroplane, one of the it used to be one of the desirable qualifications would be physics. I never had the physics. I didn't really like it, but I had to sort of relearn the parts I needed to know. But you can see why, because flying an aeroplane does involve physics. There's gravity, there's motion, there's speed opposite thrust, and all these kind of things, right? It comes in. So you can see you repurpose it, lends itself towards it. And some of these things are obvious. Like I say, your CV, your resume, well, kind of obvious, isn't that what I'm talking about? But some of it is not obvious, but they're great relatable skills. There was a great guy on I saw it the other day on a YouTube thing, and it was a charity bringing water to remote parts of the world. Now, he was a nightclub promoter before. Yep, selling nightclub tickets to swanky, pretty people, you know, staying up all night drinking beer, blah, 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 blah. He had an epiphany after years of doing that wasn't what he wanted to do. Hated it. Wanted to do something to help the world. He stopped, he quit, he tried to enroll in charities. Nobody would hire him. And I was quite amazed. Oh, why would you not? And they're like, hang on, like you was involved in nightclubs where there's drink and there's sort of possibly drugs, and why would we hire you? And he had to say to one, can you do it? And I said, if you pay us £500 a month, we'll allow you to volunteer. And he said, done, I'll do it. Right. But I was thinking, these charities have missed the trick big time. Charities want to bring in money, and he was a nightclub promoter. He knows how to promote. He knows how to make campaigns. He knows how to draw excitement, interest, moral linkage, and bring it in. Why? He was a golden goose. They should have brought him in. All these other charities missed the trick big time. And of course, he did massive things for the charity and then made his own charity and yada yada. So he transferred those skills. Unlikely as it seemed to most, it didn't seem unlikely to me, but he was like, am I the only person who could see this? But, you know, he had those skills, didn't he? He knew how to sell. He knew how to promote. He knew how to put on campaigns. Hello, that's what you do in a charity, isn't it? You know, and there you go. So what, but they missed the trick, but that's what I'm talking about. He didn't even necessarily particularly realize it himself at that point, or maybe he did, but he hadn't conveyed that to them in a way that they understood. How could you realize what you've got? How can you convey it? Amanda, what are you thinking? What's going through that great mind of yours? I can see you're piecing this together.
I was actually thinking about a conversation I'd had with a friend a while ago that I had reconnected with, and essentially it was a friend. I was trying to think about rethinking education and rethinking what it means to be educated, because I know a number of people who really struggled in school and really hated school, like you've talked about too, Grant. You didn't like school, traditional school, and then went on to become really successful. And so I had sat down and I had a conversation with him, and essentially he like didn't do well through school at all, and he hated it, and his family had like moved here from Colombia, and so he's like feeling kind of like singled out throughout school anyways, because like having to learn a second language and then having to like learn in that language and do all of your work in that language, and not being able to get help at home because his parents didn't speak English and he spoke better English than them. And then essentially like he ended up getting kicked out of our high school because I had gone to high school with him. And he had to finish high school at this other school in the town that we grew up in, which I didn't know. And so we laughed about that. That he then, even though he got kicked out of high school, actually became very, very successful.
Mm.
And it was really, really interesting because he was like, I just like floundered. And then he's like, the first time I ever felt success was when I went in to be a firefighter, and you had to get over 80% on the test. And he's like, I studied and I studied and I studied and I studied. And I wrote the test and I got like 97%. And he's like, I never got above 80 in my entire life. He's like, but I was interested. It was the first time I ever actually like studied. And then he like was a firefighter for a while, and he decided to start his own business, and he like now runs this like engineering firm. And it's, I don't exactly know exactly what he does, but he's like not even an engineer, but he's like the boss of all these engineers because he has these skills. Like he has this like gift of the gab, being able to talk to anybody, being able to promote things. And then because that business was working so well, he was starting to look at running a coffee business where he'd like bring in beans from Colombia. And so that was like his new endeavor. And I was just like, wow, this is someone who in high school you would have thought would have ended up being like not doing well at all, right? And sometimes I think those skills that they look at in school are not the skills that allow people to be successful in life. And so how do we like find a way to get kids that have the skills that he has feel successful in school? Because he said they never felt successful in school ever. And yet he clearly has these skills. And just like you, Grant, you said you didn't like school because of numerous reasons. Like, how do we get those skills so showcased in school as well, so that they can start refining their skills as early as like grade school?
Yeah.
Right? So that then they're not feeling like they're floundering for such a large percentage of their life. And I think that he
Right.
had skills even in like elementary school. And I see kids like this. I see kids like this all the time where they have these amazing skills, but they're none of the skills that I can assess in school for their report card. And so I'm like stuck in this like space where I'm like, okay, I'm only allowed to assess reading, writing, math based on this like curricula, and this is how I have to like mark it based on what they've shown me based on this curricula. But I'm like, they have all these other skills that don't show up in our curriculum at all. How do I emphasize that they have these amazing skills that aren't showing up in the curricula? And that's the like dilemma that I have as their teacher, because I want to showcase how great they are and how many skills they have that are like valuable skills for businesses, but not a skill that someone in the school system values, or like how they structured the school system values. And so that's like my internal dilemma all the time. It's like these kids have these skills, but they're not the skills that are on the curriculum. So how do we find a middle ground with that somehow, is what I like to think about. Well, that's where my brain goes when we're talking about these things.
Well, I think the answer, my candid answer, and I'm not sure I know, but it's communication. Again, it's one of the key subjects, communicating the benefits of that. But of course, it's got to be done at a government level to get these things into school. You can't just, as far as I'm aware, you can't just bring, oh, yeah, I've got this new idea, we're going to do that. You know, it's got to be done at a government level. So it's got to become an incentive. It's got to become a driving force. It's got to be an agenda. And that's a big thing. It's a big thing. But to raise awareness from it, I mean, I guess how you do it, if you can do it with smaller schools, I'm guessing private schools that may have more autonomy. They've got to stick to the curriculum, but there may be a variable part. Can it be inserted there in a small case study, tested, measured, and then used, promoted through that way? I would think that would be the way to do it.
Yeah, I really think that especially with AI coming in so intensely, that
Yeah.
we really in schools at least, and in probably business, be focusing on critical thinking skills, collaboration, and creativity. Those are the three pillars that I think we really should be focusing on, whereas schools are still so focused on like reading, writing, math. And while reading, writing, math are essential to those pillars that I talked about, those pillars aren't even like assessed or anything in school at all, like creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking skills.
Right.
So how can we like blend those two together is essentially what I think it would be
I
important. You still need to
we
learn, read, write, and do math, but we also need to emphasize these other skills that are going to be absolutely essential as we see AI coming into more and more into our lives.
I was on
Yeah, I think
call.
communications is, like Grandi says, is really, really good. And Amanda, you say critical thinking is really good. Although the AI, for me, what I believe that although the AI is here, but we still need human beings that can actually drive it. So there's no way that AI can beat human beings thinking, because we are born to be thinkers. So there is no way. So it's just like, when like a Grant and Amanda, you both mentioned two people in different occasions. This guy that became an engineer and then is managing all these people. That's what I always tell my children, that whatever you go through in life or even at school, if your teacher tells you that you're not good enough, or your friends, whoever tells you, it's you that have to know your strength. You have to know your weaknesses,
Right.
because everything comes from within. You get to know who you are. Like sometimes we'll go to competitions, and I always tell them that if I'm the judge and I'm having a bad day, it means you are going to have a bad day. Someone will have a good day. So I'm not going to judge you because of how good you are. Or sometimes you could come and you're a good dancer, you're a good singer. If I like the look of that person and like what they are wearing, their smile, I'm not going to judge them because they're good dancers. I'm just going to judge them because they brought smile to my face. So I always tell them that you do what you have to do to get your success. It's you who knows who you are. Even when you're being rejected by companies, by auditioning or anything that you do, you have to know your strength. That is really, really important. And enjoy that success. Change anything that needs change. It does not require popularity. You're not going to be popular if you want to stand out, because everyone else will challenge you and say, that's not who you are, because people do that. They'll be like, I know you, who you are. But for me, I have these coaches at Gossip Talk Shows. I have you guys. But the mind that I have is I have these talented people. If you guys surprise me, you come up with the building an AI or whatever, I wouldn't be surprised because I know a human being is talented.
Right.
So to me, that wouldn't be a surprise. So it's really, really important to have trust and beliefs in people, and also believing in yourself when you want to transfer to prosper. Yeah, Grande's topic is really, really, really good. To refine your skills for inevitable success. It's really self-beliefs is important. And like Grant, you said surrender. You have to surrender to that change. Amanda is said critical thinking is really, really important. Communication, be a good communicator is really, really important. And working on your confidence as well is really, really important. Over to you, Grant.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, so we've hit a few things here. So it's about communicating your message. Yep, that's a whole different subject for a different day. But communicating your message and your skills. So why don't you now just take a look at the skill set you have? If change is going to come upon you, or in fact, even if change isn't there, it might come at some point. You may want to instigate change. It may be, example, the AI revolution. You may say, you know, I want to do that. I do want to position myself. Let's jump now. I don't like this job. I don't like what I've been doing for a while. You know what? I've divorced. I've changed. Someone's passed away. Moving to a new town. New chapter of my life. It's going to have to be now. So what am I going to do? You know what? Why don't I just do that thing that I've been meaning to do for a while? And then dust yourself down. Have a look at it. Give yourself a sense of purpose. What have you got? Look at your resume. Look at your CV. Sharpen it up. Tidy it up. Makes you feel good. And then when you look at this, you'll realize, what have I learned? What can be repurposed? What are the skills? What are the elements from that I can take from that? Even if it's not the whole thing, the whole subject, what are the key skills? So if you worked in the checkout, for example, you know, checkout, is that what you call it in Canada? In the supermarket? Beep, 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 that thing.
Cashier.
What's it? What do you call it?
Cashier.
Cashier, checkout, whatever. Yeah. You're doing that. Okay, you've done that. You learned enough. I mean, not a lot to learn, right? Or maybe there is. But you're interacting with customers, you're dealing with this, you're doing resolution, you do. What is it you're really doing? Break down the elements of that job. Really, if you look at it, if you looked at the job advert, if you look at a job description of anything, it's mind-boggling, isn't it? They want you to do this, you're responsible for that. Is it possible? Well, it really is, because they're really stretching it out. But why don't you also stretch that out when you look at your capabilities? Because if you're doing that job and they said that was what was required, therefore you're hitting that criteria, right? So therefore that's what you can advertise you can do. So break it down into its small parts and address them for the role that you're going to next. Some of those parts may not sound relevant to what you're doing. Some may. How can you repurpose them? Maybe you're a little bit of a shortfall in this one or that one. Well, maybe you need to build that one up a little bit, just a little bit, just top it up. Do a revalidation, do an enhancement, do a little thing, do a transferable part. Therefore, so then you've got an up-to-date CV, resume, or just a conversation that you're going to have down the pub, club, wherever you go, that's going to walk you into that next role. Rather like Amanda's friend, who started off as not very good at school, didn't get more than 80%, became a firefighter, something he was really motivated to do, and he studied and got 97%. And now, probably, when he was telling me this, I'm thinking, through the confidence he gained from showing himself he can do that if he applies himself. And most people can apply themselves if it's something you're sufficiently motivated to do. And that's probably the key part. Find what you're motivated to do. Then you will succeed more. Once he's done that and he became a firefighter, a very responsible role, it probably gave him a lot of inner confidence, which probably springboarded him onto the next thing, onto the business. He carried that confidence. He had that skill of communication, with him. That built it up, which allowed him then to think, he systemized that business so he's not so busy, and then thought, well, I've got some spare time. Why don't I repurpose what I learned from that into a coffee shop or something? So that's probably the genealogy of how that came about, was all from finding that thing he liked in the first place, which gave him the motivation to study, which gave him the inner confidence, would have changed his body language, his tone of voice, his intonation, his connection with people and everything. And people will read that in you. They won't analyze it into words, but they will get a feeling that you're the right person to do it. And when you're the right person, opportunities come your way. That's it. That's how you can do it. And I think that's what he did, if only he knew it. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I think when we like that's that building that confidence piece, right? And I know I've talked about it before, the student that I have this year who like is quite below in all curricular areas, and I had a meeting with his parents right at the start of the year, and they said like, oh, we'll pull him out of this and pull him out of that and like put him in tutoring and stuff. And I said, no, he doesn't need more of that. He needs things to love. He needs things to like build his confidence. So he actually is going to feel confident in one area. And then that confidence will transfer into other areas so that he's actually willing to try to learn to read and try to learn to write. And throughout this year, he's actually started to like read and write. And it's like, it's amazing to see the growth over time, but it's all about like building that confidence, especially
Yeah.
it's about building their confidence as they grow. And imagine if you really struggled with like reading or writing, would you ever want to read or write? If somebody was especially like taking away the things that you love and being like, you have to read and write more, it's like, no.
Yeah, no,
You need to
no.
find ways for them to like see that reading and writing is valuable so that then they can like build their confidence enough to be willing to try, right? When you learn to ride a bike, it's about like learning to build your confidence that you can get back on that bike and try again and get back on that bike and try again, so that eventually those skills you'll be able to like do, but you can't the first time you get on a bike, you don't just ride right away, right? And also like you don't put a top like a baby on a bike, you wait until like you try the tricycle and then you try, right? So that eventually when you go on a two-wheel bike, you can do it, but it's like step by step by step by step
Yeah,
confidence, right?
exactly. Ben, what do you call? I call them stabilizers. You know, the bicycle when you got the little wheels. And I use an analogy when I teach it about, yeah, just try a bit of the stabilizers first of all, and then gradually we'll bend those stabilizers up a little bit, and you'll wobble a little bit, and then you'll recalibrate, and you're getting a bit, and then in the end, we just take the stabilizers off, and you're good to go. And that's the way I see life and success. You know, don't throw people in the deep end. I'm not a great believer in that. I'm believing in keeping the stabilizers on, bending them up now and then, just step by step, allowing them to grow and gain confidence. And then in the end, they don't need those damn stabilizers. They're good to go. And that's it. And that's the way we teach kids to ride bicycles. In fact, I didn't. I just wobbled and fell off a couple of times and got the hang of it. But but yeah, my father probably would have put stabilizers on if he felt I needed it, but he probably realised I didn't need it. And that's just maybe something which I naturally was okay at, but I'm sure there was things I wasn't, and I needed stabilizers, metaphorically speaking, in other areas. You know, we all do, don't we? We all excel at some and not at others. I think I learned to ride a bicycle in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's it. Mum said, I remember my father said, "Mum, he's got it. That's fine." That was it. And he was just saying, "Don't worry, I'm here. Just go. Just have confidence. Go. I won't let you fall." And I wobbled a couple of things. That's all right. Get back on. Get back on. Around a little garden. And after 20 minutes, he said, well, nothing else to do. He's got it. That's it. It was done. He's like, I'm going home have my dinner now. That's it. But of course, like I'm saying, certain areas we need a little bit more support. That's very common. Um, and it's okay. And I think if anybody's out there does need more help in certain areas, don't worry about that. I've been through life long enough to see that some people who aren't naturally gifted at certain things at the beginning can end up being fantastic at it. Absolutely fantastic. And my analogy is because you learn it. If you're not naturally good at things, if you have a need to learn, do it. Sometimes you have to sit down and write, okay, I need to learn this now. You'll probably learn more than people who are perhaps naturally gifted at it, because they're like, oh, I kind of got this, I'm all right. And they kind of cruise through it because I'm not really, and they kind of get to that level and they're pretty good. But the people who don't know it, learn it and excel more. Funny thing, like tomorrow, um, I'm not a tech head at all. And we measure the results of my clients, right? We measure the results. We have the spreadsheets, and which sounds horrible because I hate those things, and a lot of people do. And you track their numbers. Now, I used to get on the thing, and I clearly didn't know how to do it. I mean, I can put numbers in a box, but how you change it and do this and was not my thing. And I sat there and thought, I'm in a bit of a pickle because I need to teach people how to do this, and I really am not very good at it myself. And I've got to be congruent. I've got to do it. So I remember some years ago, I spent a very frustrated weekend shouting at the computer, sitting there learning how to do it and looking at YouTube videos and phoning people. What's this mean? How do you do that? And all this guy. And I spent a whole weekend doing that. But it was productive because on the Sunday night, I had it. I got it. I got it. Um, oh, well, I found that wonderful button that says undo, which means if you screw it up, you just press that and go. I mean, that's miracle. I'm like, why didn't nobody tell me that button was there? That gave me so much confidence. If I screw it up, I just press that. Well, I cannot tell you how many times I pressed that button over the weekend, right? But it gave me, and I did it. I now teach this to people. Tomorrow, and I got students. I know where you are. Don't think I'm some genius at this. I was terrible at it, so terrible that I had to sit down and actually learn it. And I remember the week after, my friend who's way more techie than me said, "I don't know how to do it." I said, "I'll show you." She said, "You'll show me?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll show you how to do it." Said, "How do you know?" I spent all weekend shouting at the computer, and I actually learned how to do it. And again, I don't know every part of it, far from it, don't get me wrong. Occasionally a student would teach me a bit, but for what they need to know, the level of what they need to know, I teach that, which is kind of funny. So yeah, and they look at me, oh, you're so good at it. I'm like, not really. I might be now, but I can promise you, you already know more about it than I did when I first started. So yeah, don't worry if you're not particularly good at something. You can do it. And then, of course, note that down. Note that down on your skills. Note it down on your attributes. Just keep a sheet somewhere, a note on your computer, on your phone. I don't care, or a piece of paper or whatever. And just write it down what your skills are and look at them now and then. Just look at your skills that you amassed through life and see how much taller you stand, how much straighter you stand when you realize, oh my God, I do that, don't I? I didn't realize that. And that will change your perception of yourself, your self-concept. Don't do it to brag. You don't need to tell anyone. It's just that you need to know. And it changes you. In the same way that my coach said once when he was a kid, he was bullied a lot of school. He was bullied. And he studied martial arts. And he's told this story many, many times. And, you know, the kids bullied him and he had to put them on the ground. And he didn't like having to do that. But of course, the bullying stopped. But here's the interesting thing, and he only said this once, but this is the really interesting point, that sometimes when he was out and about with people who didn't know him after, when he did martial arts, people just treated him differently. He didn't have to demonstrate anything. He didn't even have to tell them he had done it. It was just a kind of a thing that he gave off, like an energy, an aura. People felt it. Whether that was confidence, I don't know. There was something. And he's a very ethical person, yeah. But so it's interesting, and it is a certain chi. It is and this is where gets interesting. You know, it's all kinds of things. Nothing breeds success like success. I'm not a sports trainer, but I'm sure sports trainers will tell you if you have someone you want to get them to win, you'll pair them with someone, a team, an opponent, whatever, who will almost match your skill, but you have to push a little bit and you'll beat them. Not against a world champion who's going to flatten you, just someone who's a little bit better. So you made a slight achievement. And then you've learned what it feels like to win. Your confidence improves. Not so much that you're cocky and arrogant and going to set yourself up for a fall, but you get a bit more confident. The next one, someone a little bit harder, and you go a little bit up and just maybe lose. But what did you learn from that? What did you learn? Okay, let's fix that. Let's put that in, and next time you win. And then you keep micro. Now, this is feeding your brain with dopamine, which is really important. That's an expectancy drug. Okay, which comes from your brain. You expect success. You know success. Your brain knows the route to success because you've done it before. This builds your confidence. This builds, and again, this comes from your tone of voice, your actions, your thought. And I've watched people when they've been doing. I was watching a guitarist last night, and I'm like, he's grown. He's grown. Just the little thing he did, just the way he just bent down, got up quickly, and just did. I thought he's totally relaxed and at ease in that role. I saw him 6 months ago. He's better than me. Don't get me wrong. He was good, but something about last night just different. In fact, I'm going to tell him that. I'm going to let him know. Just watching you last night, I've noticed this. It was he'd grown, and it wasn't anything playing the guitar per se. It was just the way he held the guitar, bent down, just adjusted something, and come up. You look at it, and you know he's done that 10,000 times. You could just see it in the body language. Now, would I have confidence in booking him to do a gig? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I know he's done it. I could see it. He didn't have to say a word. There wasn't anything written. He didn't tell me. It was just an observation. Yep. Now, if you had me doing it, I haven't played. I used to play in a band years ago, but not now. I would look a lot more fumbly because I haven't done it for a long while, right? But you'd notice in him, he looks more confident, more experienced because he is. Right? It's as simple as that. So get that understanding, get that confidence, and it shows. Now, last night I was on a call with some colleagues. How will I word this? And one's a school teacher, mathematics, and she's got a kid who's misbehaving a little bit, and the parents have raised concern. Now they're pushing the kid really, really hard, really, really hard, and I think the kid's rebelling. And we just come up with ideas, and I was saying, when we're thinking about it, and there's a structure that we use, and I was saying, comes to my attention that what they're doing, that maybe inadvertently setting the kid up for a fall because they're pushing him for absolute academic excellence, which is, I understand parents want the best from the kids. I totally get that. But it's an acceptable limit, isn't it? When's it right? I mean, if your kid is a fantastic academic, yeah, I guess they can go on. If they're really not, what's a high achievement for that person? It's probably here also, yeah. And I thought around a solution, and I come to the point. I love your cat on the back of the sofa, but it came to the solution that I thought, if that kid excels at academia, at some point he's going to be in control of a team, a department, research project, something. He's going to be terrible because he's never been allowed to make any decisions for himself. So you're setting him up for a mighty fall if he's not addressed those skill balance. On the opposite end, if you went into the army, for example, to do officer training, it would be an awful lot about decision making, fact finding, repurposing. Yeah. Like, you've got a piece of rope, a couple of pins, and that, how do you get the people across the river with that kind of thing? Well, how can you improvise? All this kind of thing. How can you communicate that to a team? These are different kinds of skills. I'm not saying one's better than the other. You need both. You need both. And if you're just concentrating on A, you're neglecting B. That's going to catch up and bite you in the backside at some point. So we're trying to find a way to communicate this subconsciously to the parents so that they want to address the balance and let the kid also be a kid and enjoy his childhood while getting good grades. Right? So we're trying to find a balance. And it was a moral dilemma because I was like, well, what we could ask them to do, is it right for us to do that? Is it morally right? Should they push him to get great grades? I guess, but to which point? Where's the happy balance for the kids' mental health and this and that? So this is what we're looking at. And I think in life, we need to address that balance because leadership, which I'll be talking about soon, at university, leadership, training, understanding, communication, This goes hand in hand with other things. It's not mutually exclusive. These things tie in together. And I think we should all look at that. So when you're looking at your CV, you're looking at your resume, where are you using that in your job as a cashier, as a checkout person? Where could you use that to elevate yourself if you wish to do so in your next role? How can you look at what you've done? How can you refine it? How can you repurpose it for your ultimate and inevitable success? That's what I thought. That was my words of wisdom. Okay. Amanda?
I love that. Just how can you refine your skills, right? Because whatever it is, I liked how you talked at the very beginning about the engineer who wanted to become a coach and how essentially he used those skills in a different area and how those skills were actually transferable, but he wasn't seeing how they were transferable, but you could because that's what you do, right? If you say like, look, you have all these skills, they can be used here. And I think that that's something that we sometimes forget, is we're like, we don't have any experience in that, but it's like, no, you really do. It just doesn't look the way that other people's path to getting there does. Yours
Right.
looks different. That's okay. But we can totally refine your skills or repurpose those skills for you to be super successful in another area too. And so I think, like you said, like no matter what it is that you can do, you already have skills that you can totally take with you into a new area and be super successful if you want to. So that's where I'll leave us for today.
Cool, cool, cool.
Yeah, success is inevitable for me when it comes to my kids. I don't hope Shishi, that's my daughter, she's singing. I don't push them, but I get them study buddies. My job is to guide them through having a good education to make sure they've done their homework, talk to them about their struggles and how I can help them moving forward to make things better. So that's when a study buddy comes, a teacher that will help them, because if I say I'm going to help you, then that means we argue. So I don't like that. So for me, it's just creating a strategy, having talked, like you go to teachers meeting and ask how do I help? So if they say this, she's struggling with this, that, then I get an extra work for them to make sure that they stay in the same level. Because if I push them, that's putting off a child education. So actually, I manipulate them. I make deals. If you do better, you get what you want. You get to choose what you want. So I tell them the limit, but I always lose anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, I always lose. I never win when it comes to them. If I make a deal with them, because they will study hard and making sure that they beat me. So that's how I manipulate them. Yeah. You can't argue with the children. The children are smarter.
Oh yeah, they're quicker. They're
I got a phone yesterday, the Samsung, the new one. My 9-year-old set it up for me. And I said to her, where did you learn all this? She goes, oh, mommy, that's what YouTube is for. You learn a lot from YouTube. So she actually, yeah, she goes, what's your email? When she was setting it all up and everything. And I'm looking at her, I'm thinking, what is this world turning into?
do you mean YouTube University?
Yeah. Yeah, she goes, Mommy, that's what YouTube is for. You got to learn. You got to learn. I can even tell you the website where you can find the good special offers as well if you need some. I was like, okay.
Love,
Yeah,
love
so
it.
yeah, I think there's just believing in yourself and trusting your abilities and really uh, being able to accept the feedback, whether it's negative or not, and also being able to really accept where your weaknesses are and embracing your strength, both and your weaknesses. I think that's important for somebody who wants change. because the change does not come easy. It comes with a fall as well. And when you fall, and being able to lift yourself up. And mostly the important thing, guys, is surrounding yourself with people that can lift you. Like in Gossip Talk shows, we had coaches from different background, different qualifications. Some are psychologists, some are different. We're all different. So if you want to succeed and you want to transform your life, please do get in touch with us. And one of the coaches will help you, whoever the coaches that you resonate with, because everyone has people that they connect with. So you can go to the website, it's www.hseia.coach, and sign up. Or if you're looking for relationship, and then sign up as well, and just get in touch with us. We take it from there. We do assessment and get it from there. Or you can follow these guys as well, Grant and Amanda, on their social media as well. And just if you have a question, message them and talk to them, or have a free, I don't know, do you guys give a free consultation?
I'll do a brief one, yeah.
Yeah, brief one. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can just
I'd
briefly.
normally send a survey so people can tell me what it is they want to work
Yeah,
on.
so just, yeah, a quick brief introduction, and then you take it from there, because it's just one step that you have to take that can change your life forever. And we have two groups in Gossip Talk Shows and Unique Billionaire Mindset. You can follow our page, please, in Gossip Talk Shows and Hope Spring Eternal Introduction Agency. And please do share our videos. We appreciate it so much if you can share with your families. God bless everyone, and live with grace.